What's going on, everyone? Today is January 19th of 2022, and welcome back to another edition of the Super Stream. A little bit like last week, I got the chat up on one of my windows here, so I'll be peeking in from time to time, checking in on any comments, questions, maybe even any news stories or anything that you want me to decode. I might look at doing that, particularly in the second hour or so of this. You know, usually we go about 60 to 90 minutes or so, varying. I'm feeling a lot better this week than I felt last week, so we could certainly go longer. Of course, we got plenty to talk about in this hour plus, and a fair amount of it is going to have to do with the NFL. Now, I promise I won't do too many more deep NFL decodes in the playoffs. This will probably be my last one. And I understand that a lot of people don't care about the sports decodes. However, I think even those of you who aren't sports fans or don't care about the numerology with sports will still be very intrigued by what happened this past weekend in regards to the NFL. In 5 or 6 years of looking at the NFL through this lens of Gematria, astrology, numerology, I've never really seen anything like I've seen the past few weeks. Maybe one weekend back in 2016 in October, but this really takes the cake. And what it all points to is the true riddle of the Super Bowl. So we're going to talk about what the hell happened with the Dallas Cowboys. Why didn't they win? Of course, I've been talking about the Cowboys for most of the season, but I've also talked about the fact that they could just be another cog in the wheel of the bigger overall riddle. Because we know how the NFL works. There's multiple scripts running at once. It's a matter of which one they pick. And today I'm going to prove this beyond a shadow of a doubt, as this year's theme of the Super Bowl is essentially Saturn. In Hebrew Gematria, Saturn, or Shabtai, has ordinal Gematria of 56. So this is a really important number, really important planet. And we'll talk about how Saturn was coded throughout virtually every game as we go. All right, so shout out to everybody who jumped in early. Appreciate the love. Let's get right into this. We're actually going to start over in Italy, where the Vatican's second in command, a cardinal named Pietro Parolin, was allegedly diagnosed with CV19 yesterday. Now, I found it pretty interesting that the second in charge over at the Vatican, when you measure from his birthday to the Pope's, you get a span of 6,606 days. Isn't that comforting? The Catholic Church stamping 666, the number of the beast, into a lot of their numerology. And in my blog post, I also have a link to my video on how 666 is the primary number of this whole pandemic that we're going through right now. Still to this day, believe it or not. Notice how Parolin was born on January 17th. This news story was published yesterday, one day after his birthday. But think about what else happened on January 17th. The NFL's team, the Cardinals, were eliminated from the playoffs. And again, this is within a day of the Vatican's top-ranked cardinal being diagnosed with COVID. So on Monday, he turned exactly 67 years old. Well, 67 is a pretty significant number to what's going on right now. First of all, it's the 19th prime number. And of course, 19 is the number that's been labeled with this disease. In standard reduction, or Pythagorean Gematria, COVID-19 sums to 67. Getting diagnosed just one day after his 67th birthday. Now, the numbers 6 and 7 are very important to what we'll be talking about throughout the first chunk of this video, as they are both connected to the number 13. 13 is both a Fibonacci and a prime number. And as you see here, the 6th prime and the 7th Fibonacci. On top of this, if you add 7 plus 6, you of course get a sum of 13. So 13 is the huge number connected to everything that's going on with the NFL. Notice how Arizona Cardinals has the same Gematria in reduction as Pietro Parolin, the name of this cardinal, top-ranking cardinal of the Catholic Church, which also equals 75. Notice how the Arizona Cardinals... Actually, I got this backwards. The Catholic Church sums to 165 and 84 in reduction. Of course, Arizona equals 84, and Arizona Cardinals sums to 165, like the Catholic Church. Seems to explain a big chunk of the reason as to why the Cardinals moved to Arizona, of all places, so many years ago. And think about Arizona Cardinals, AC, the first letter, followed by the third letter, a lot like the number 13. And we'll talk more about these 13 synchronicities in a second. Pope Francis became the Pope on the 13th day of the month in the year 13. And it just so happens that March 13th was the same date that CV-19 was declared a national emergency here in the United States. So if you measure from March 13th to the date that this man's top-ranking cardinal got CV, you get exactly 311 days. Now, the number 311 also stands out because March 11th, 2 days prior to the national emergency declaration, is when the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. Coronavirus pandemic equals 113, like the date it was declared, the 11th of March. Notice how Cardinal Pietro Parolin sums to 113 in reduction. His name is also 130 in reverse reduction. Yesterday was 1 year, 313 days after the WHO declared a pandemic. So 113 and 13 heavily coded into this story. Remember, the number 113 is what we call the primary number of deception, as all of these words on your screen on the right side here summing to 113, either in ordinal or reverse. Another huge lying number is 317. Think about if you turn the word lie upside down, the number 317. The word lie flipped upside down in Gematria is also 317. Shout out to Zenith again in the chat. And look how old the Pope was, 31,077 days when Parolin was diagnosed. Meanwhile, Parolin was 3,017 days into his term as the Secretary of State at the Vatican. It was also 431 weeks since he became Secretary of State. That's the 83rd prime number. His name Pietro, summing to 83. So again, this all happened within a few hours of the Cardinals being eliminated from the postseason. And we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive here into the NFL. Now, for the duration of the season, particularly since Week 10, I've been talking about this massive 13 riddle that's been playing out. And it's centered around Mike McCarthy and the death of a former NFL player named Sam Huff. And I put a lot of this on your screen. I'm not going to repeat all of this, but this all happened 13 weeks before the Super Bowl, and I noticed this incredible 13 sync with quote-unquote Mr. 13, Mike McCarthy. Sam Huff died at the age of 4,545 weeks. And this is a very important piece of the riddle because the word 13 equals 45 in both reduction methods. That week, 2 teams scored 45 points. New England, which also equals 45 and 45, and the Buffalo Bills, which equals 45. And it just so happens that the Buffalo Bills ended up playing against the New England Patriots in the first round of the postseason. Also remember that Mike McCarthy led the Packers to a Super Bowl 45 championship. And that was the Packers' 13th championship in NFL history. So with all of these 13s, this leads us to Week 1 of the NFL postseason. The bracket shown here on your screen. The number 13 was heavily coded into all 6 of the games. Now remember, just last year, the NFL began playing 6 games on Wild Card Weekend, calling it Super Wild Card Weekend. And remember, 13 is the 6th prime. Furthermore, there's now 13 games in the playoffs, the Super Bowl being the 13th game of the postseason. This year, the Super Bowl is played on the 13th day of the month for the first time since 1974. Meanwhile, the AFC and NFC title games will be played on the date January 30th, written 1/30, like the number 13. The Super Bowl is in LA. LA, 12 plus 1 is 13. And 2022 is the NFL's 103rd year, having been founded in 1920. This weekend, we had the Buffalo Bills against the New England Patriots, where Buffalo got their 13th win at home in the postseason. It was also New England's 13th loss on the road in the playoffs. It would have been their 13th win on the road in the postseason, but it wasn't. Instead, Bill Belichick got his 13th career playoff loss exactly 13 weeks before his birthday. In this game, a man named Dawson Knox, whose name equals 130, scored the first touchdown for the Bills at the age of 1,313 weeks. After he scored, the Patriots started their next drive at the 13-yard line. Later on in the game, number 13 for the Bills scored to make it 40-10. And 40-10, this represents the number 41 in numerology. And 41 is the 13th prime number. That number 13 for the Bills is Gabriel Davis, and look at his birthday. April 1st, written 4-1, like the 13th prime. Furthermore, he was born in the year 99. And in the alphabetic order, the number 13 sums to 99 when spelled out. This brings us to the second game. Notice how Pittsburgh equals 130 and Steelers equals 103. Pittsburgh won the Super Bowl 13 years ago. They also won Super Bowl 13. This weekend was the Steelers' 1,300th game in franchise history. Roethlisberger retired after the game with 13 playoff wins. The Chiefs entered the game with 13 wins head-to-head. Patrick Mahomes got his 31st win at home in his career. And in this game, number 13 on both teams scored a touchdown. The names of those players are even connected. Number 13 on the Steelers is named Washington, which equals 130, just like Pittsburgh. The other one is Byron Pringle, and notice how his name equals 169. Well, the square root of 169 is 13. The final game in the AFC, Raiders and Bengals. This was Rich Bisaccia's 13th game as the head coach of Las Vegas. The Raiders entered with 13 playoff road losses, but the Bengals won. So now Joe Burrow is 13-13 lifetime in his career. This was also Cincinnati's 13th all-time win over the Raiders, who scored their 13th point with 13 seconds left on the game clock. We mentioned how 13 is the 6th prime. Well, now Cincinnati is 6-6 at home in the playoffs. What about the NFC? Notice how Eagles equals 113, and they're the other team from Pennsylvania, like the Steelers. Both teams from Pennsylvania, the Steelers and the Eagles, were playing in their 1,300th game in franchise history. Philadelphia also entered this game with 13 road playoff losses. Tom Brady won the game to get his 13th home win with Tampa Bay, who improved from 6 to 7 home playoff wins. Remember, these numbers connected to 13. I thought it was interesting that Philadelphia has a tight end named Dallas, which equals 13, who was born on January 3rd, written 13, and he was playing a span of 13 days after his birthday. Dak Prescott lost to the 49ers, dropping to 1-3 in the playoffs. His opponents, Garoppolo and Shanahan, are now 3-1 in the playoffs. In Jewish Gematria, San Francisco 49ers equals 13-13. They scored the first 13 points of the game. Dallas's first touchdown went to Amari Cooper, whose initials are 1-3. The punter was also involved in a couple of big plays. You may recall he hit the Jumbotron once during a play. He also threw a fake for a first down, and he was 103 days after his birthday. This brings us finally to this Cardinals-Rams game, connected to the story about the Catholic Church. I didn't highlight the 13s here, but think about LA 13. Their quarterback Matt Stafford got his 13th win for the team. It was also the Rams' 13th home playoff victory in franchise history. Kyler Murray, the Cardinals quarterback, his name equals 130. He still has 13 road wins in his career. And it was Arizona's 31st road loss in the playoffs. There were two surprising returns for the Rams in this game. First of all, Eric Weddle came out of retirement after like 13 or 14 months. Actually, that might be wrong. I think he's been out since 2019, so forget that. But he was 13 days after his birthday. Another surprise return was made by J.J. Watt, who wears number 99, which is the gematria of 13. And his surprise return was on January 17th, written 117, which is the reverse value of 13. Remember, this was the first Monday Night Football playoff game in the history of the NFL. And of course, the date 117, very significant to it all. So, what is this all pointing to? Because, again, the Cowboys were eliminated. They were the team that was most coated with 13 throughout the regular season. Well, notice how the first and last games of the postseason finished with 45 points. And we mentioned how the number 13 is connected to 45. Again, just to illustrate, 13 summing to 45 and 45. Now, what is the number 13 actually, right? Think about this as a symbol. If you flip the number 13 upside down, it looks a lot like L. E-L. In ancient mythology, El is the Father of Heaven, the God of gods, also equated with the planet Saturn. And think about how Saturn is the sixth planet from the sun. So the magic square of Saturn has this value of 45 if you add every number 1 through 9, right? So when the Cowboys game finished with a score of 17-23, I immediately thought again of the planet Saturn. In fact, the game after that finished with a score of 42-21, which is the value of Saturn in both reduction methods. If you add up the score of all 6 games from this wildcard weekend, you find that 303 total points were scored, and that's the value of Saturn in Satanic Gematria. The Hebrew word for Saturn, which again is Shabtai, has this ordinal value in Hebrew of 56. So doesn't it all make sense now, right? All of these 13s that we've been seeing all season long are pointing to a heavy Saturn riddle. That's what it's all been all about. It's not just the number 13, it's that 13 points us to Saturn. And this is basically undeniable. So let's dig a little bit more into this Saturn connection here. And bring up my slides. So again, the game finished with a score of 17-23 in favor of the 49ers. The festival Saturnalia is celebrated from the 17th through the 23rd of December. Again, in square numbers, Saturn summing to 1723. We're talking about the magic square of Saturn. The Cowboys game was played on January 16th, written 116. And notice how both Saturnalia and Prescott sum to 116. San Francisco even entered this game with an 11-6 record. Now, I did a lot of slides actually ahead of time about how Mike McCarthy was coded to the Super Bowl, right? And I think it's pretty interesting now that the Cowboys, let's see if I got this right. No, wait. San Francisco did not enter 11-6. That was wrong. The Cowboys entered 11-6. And then the Niners won to go 11-7. Now the number 117 is coded into Mike McCarthy, whose name equals 1170. He was fired by the Packers 1,170 days before the Super Bowl. This year's Super Bowl falls 11 years and 7 days after McCarthy won the Super Bowl with the Packers. 11 times 7 is 77, like Green Bay. And the Super Bowl also falls 770 days after he was hired. Just showing, again, how the Cowboys were a piece of this puzzle. And why people like myself, who bet on these games occasionally, are usually being played for fools, because Vegas never loses, right? I think it's more about picking out who the media is trying to make you think is favored. And maybe they're using numerology to sway the betting. In fact, I almost guarantee they are. So I was talking about the Cowboys out of the NFC all season. And however, I never really made a pick from the AFC. Now, before the playoffs began, I did look at the AFC and I found a really good riddle for one team. Now, that riddle is contingent heavily on the Cowboys being their opponent. So whether or not this team is going to the Super Bowl, I don't know. There's some interesting numbers, but there always are, right? But let's go back to the morning that the NFL playoffs started. January 15th. A lot of people on the West Coast woke up that morning to a news alert on their phone warning them that there was an incoming tsunami, which, of course, is going to be pretty scary to a lot of people, having seen what happened in Japan back in 2011. It was a pretty small event. You just had waves, a couple extra feet come in, wash up high on the beach. But think about how Los Angeles, where this tsunami warning was, is the host of this year's Super Bowl. Notice how the word eruption has the exact same gematria as 56, the number of the Super Bowl this year. These are also numbers connected to Buffalo Bill. Now, why is this significant? Well, the Bills were the team that I thought were best coming out of the AFC. Notice how this eruption occurred within the remnants of a tropical cyclone that was dissipating at the time. This cyclone was named Cody. And that stands out because Buffalo Bill's real name is Cody. And of course, the Buffalo Bills football team is named after this legend from the Wild Wild West, Buffalo Bill. And his last name is Cody. How wild is that? Using the alphabetic order, the name Cody sums to 47, I should say. The current coach of the Bills, Sean McDermott, is 47 years old. Buffalo Bill died on a date with primary numerology of 47. That night, the Bills erupted against the Patriots, scoring 47 points. Now, there were a total of 64 points in the game. Notice how Buffalo Bill sums to 64. So does Buffalo Bill Cody. Meanwhile, the Bills entered this game with a postseason record of 16-18. That's the full name of William Frederick Cody, 1618. Now, in my decode on Major League Baseball, we talked a lot about how the number 89 was significant for the World Series. It all had to do with the Field of Dreams, as there was a Field of Dreams game played in the Major League Baseball. There was also a heavy riddle connected to the movie Major League, which came out in 1989. And then we found the number 1989 in the coach of the Braves, which is what caused me to pick that team, right? Well, in 1989, Jerry Jones bought the Dallas Cowboys. And another thing that happened in 1989 is that Buffalo Bill got his Medal of Honor back. So notice how Medal of Honor sums to 126 in the alphabetic order. Buffalo equals 126. the city where the Bills play. His real name is William Cody, which equals 126. And it was on the date 12/6 or 6/12, a date with 126 numerology, when he got his Medal of Honor back. So when you look at 1989, the 49ers won the Super Bowl in January of 89, and then they won the next Super Bowl for the 89 season. The Cowboys played the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, and Buffalo Bill, when he first left home, when he was like 15 years old, he originally wanted to become a gold miner. And of course, the San Francisco 49ers are named the 49ers because of the gold rush in 1849. So the riddle was all there for the Bills and the Cowboys to match up once again. It would have also been their third playoff or Super Bowl matchup. The number 3 equals 56, right? Super Bowl 56. So I'm just illustrating how there's multiple things going on in the NFL at once. And you can always build a strong riddle with a lot of these teams towards the end of the playoffs here. That's just how it goes. And one of these teams will go on. So, again, we've identified that the riddle here is Saturn. Now, does this actually tell us who's going to the Super Bowl? I don't think it does, because all of these teams left, especially out of the AFC, have a lot of Saturn coding in them. So first, we're looking a little bit more at the Bills. Buffalo, New York, and their coach, Sean McDermott, both have overlap with Super Bowl 56. The Bills' next loss will be their 511th in franchise history. That's the Jewish value of Saturn and the satanic value of William Cody, Buffalo Bill. Notice how Sean McDermott shares 93 and 21 Gematria with Super Bowl 56. Well, this would be the first Bills Super Bowl since the 93 season, and this is the end of the 21 season, right? So there's your Saturn riddle for the Bills. Pretty strong. On the date of the Super Bowl, Sean McDermott's age lines up with the Gematria of Buffalo Bill. However, again, this was connected to Dakota Prescott, his full name. Cowboys already eliminated, so make of it what you will. There was also a strong eclipse theming. You had the two number 1 seeds closest to the last 2 eclipses in the United States. And then the remaining teams, 2 of which were disastrously eliminated from the playoffs before the postseason, here in the path of the 2024 eclipse. So you could have made an eclipse riddle out of the Super Bowl because this 2024 eclipse falls on a date with 56 numerology. What I was going to mention with Saturnalia as well, you guys remember when Donald Trump got impeached? It was December 18th, which is one day after Saturnalia begins celebrating. And they voted 23-17 to impeach Donald Trump for the Saturnalia thing. And again, 23-17 pointing to Saturn, Niners and Cowboys. But let's go deeper. What about the Tennessee Titans? Now, Saturn has a lot of moons, 62 to be exact. The largest of those moons is called Titan. And of course, one of the teams left, the number 1 seed of the AFC, is named the Titans. Super Bowl 56 falls 325 days after Titan's 325 discovery date. Notice how Super Bowl 56 in reduction gematria sums to 57 like the date it falls on. These numbers connected to moon. Again, Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Titans coach Mike Vrabel will be exactly 558 months old for the Super Bowl. That's the Sumerian value of Saturn. This number is also found in Saturn man Aaron Rodgers. Twice in his career, Rodgers broke his collarbone. And check out how Aaron Rodgers and broken collarbone both equal 558. The Packers once beat the Titans 55-7. Not 55-8, but that's still an important number. I'll talk about it in a second. But again, Titan is a moon of Saturn. Now, the magic square of the moon sums to 3321. And this number keeps coming up in my decodes. The most relevant match I can think of is how Joe Montana, check this out. Remember Joe Montana? He played for the 49ers and the Chiefs. And the Super Bowl with the 49ers against the Chiefs was when Joe Montana was exactly 3,321 weeks old. And the 49ers entered this game with a 33-21 playoff record. And again, this is the sum of the magic square of the moon. Joe Montana, drafted the same year as a total eclipse over the state of Montana. Born on a Monday, right? Significant moon coding. And now, on the date of the Super Bowl, Ryan Tannehill, the quarterback of the Titans, will be 33 years, 201 days old. Check out how Titans equals 560, like Super Bowl 56. Remember, the first moon landing was on the date 7/20. Tennessee Titans equals 720. Another big moon number. Mike Vrabel will also be 46 years and 6 months old exactly. Saturnalia equals 466. But check this out. The Tennessee Titans, summing to 222. This year is 2022. Their name also syncs up with Saturn, 69. But how about the fact that this is the NFL's 102nd season? The Tennessee Titans equals 102. The 102nd prime number is 557. Back in the year 2012, the Packers beat the Titans 55-7. Now, isn't that interesting? This was the 15th game of the season. 8 years later, they played on the 15th game of the season again. And it was the same weekend as the Christmas bombing in Nashville. Of course, Tennessee plays their home games in Nashville. Now, if you measure from the Nashville bombing to the Super Bowl, you get exactly 1 year and 50 days. Well, that's incredible because Green Bay Packers 150, Saturn Moon 150, Super Bowl 56 150, Aaron Rodgers entering the playoffs with 150 career wins. This year, Green Bay was the closest NFL city to the annular eclipse, which equals 150. And Mike Vrabel, the coach, this Saturn coding here, he went to Walsh Jesuit High School, which equals 150. A Jesuit high school for Super Bowl 56? Society of Jesus equals 56. Meanwhile, what about the owner of the Titans, Amy Adams Strunk? What a great name. She was born on a date with 93 numerology, on the date that leaves 93 days in the year. That's the ordinal value of Saturn. Remember Aaron Charles Rodgers, 93, the Green Bay Packers, 93. And look at how old she'll be for the Super Bowl. 66 years old. Well, the 66th prime number is 317, like Saturn in primes. Tennessee is 137, a reshuffling of these digits. In Hebrew Gematria, Saturn sums to 713, just like the Tennessee Titans in primes. So, and look at how old, by the way. You know, we talked about Donald Trump being connected to Saturn. His name equals Saturn in Gematria. He was the victim of a Saturnalia ritual for this impeachment. And look at how old he'll be for the Super Bowl. Exactly 908 months old. Saturn summing to 908. And I've long documented how the Packers are connected to Saturn. Think about where they play. The legendary Lambeau Field, the most famous stadium in sports. Lambeau Field equals 511 and 303, just like Saturn. And the Packers, remember, they first returned to the playoffs in the year 93, which was the last time the Bills went to the Super Bowl. So, all right, yeah. That's a little exhausting to go through, but there you have it. And if you want to show guys, if you want to show people how the NFL is scripted, just show them what I just showed you. How is it possible that all of these 13s line up so well for this weekend? It's out of control. It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I would do more NFL decodes if I really cared to. I mean, I do a fair amount of work on sports. I'm not here selling sports picks. You know, there's some people doing Gematria that are selling something. They're selling picks. They're claiming that they know who's going to win based on numbers. They don't. They may have a better idea about a riddle sometimes, but that's not always the case. Remember, a lot of these games, particularly during the regular season, are helping build larger riddles for the postseason. So, you've heard me rant on this before. I'm not going to go over it again. Right, so Super Bowl 56, we talked about Society of Jesus summing to 56. This is also connected to the Pope, who is the first public member of the Society of Jesus to lead the Catholic Church. 56, also the value of coronavirus. And just this past week, we had a story about the COVID vaccine on a date with numerology of 56. So last week, on day 13 of the year, the Supreme Court stepped in and made its ruling, blocking Biden's insane vaccine or test mandate for businesses in the United States. A lot of people are celebrating this as a victory. I would urge a lot of caution in doing that. You know, I don't know anybody who thought that this vaccine mandate had a chance to go through in the first place. You know, they did end up approving the mandate for healthcare workers, which is not good because a lot of healthcare workers did not take the vaccine, don't feel like they need the vaccine, and there's no proof that not taking it is that much more harmful to the patients. It's just not there. And you've seen in the news too, like these hospitals, instead of rehiring unvaccinated people who test negative, they're actually rehiring or bringing back aboard positive cases to work in the hospitals. It's pure calamity. And nowhere in this judgment did the Supreme Court acknowledge that these things don't work. This needle treatment doesn't work. You still catch it, you still get sick, you still spread it. So, no, it's not really a win. It's just, you know, it's good to see freedom stand up for a little while longer anyway. So the Supreme Court made its landmark ruling on the 13th day of the year, and this is a number connected to SCOTUS. Notice how SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, equals 533. This number is 13 times the 13th prime number. Now, last year, the FDA approved the COVID vaccine on the date leaving 130 days in the year. This year, January 13th, fell exactly 13 months after emergency use authorization was approved. Of course, coronavirus pandemic equals 113, like we pointed out. Declared a pandemic on 11/3. Now, if you measure from that declaration of the World Health Organization to the date of the ruling, you get 22 months and 2 days. And that stands out because mandatory vaccination summing to 2/22. This year, January 13th, had primary numerology of 56. And again, the number connected to the CV, the VA double X, both of these summing to 56. Now, I also found a pretty interesting riddle connected to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. In reduction, federal vaccine mandate equals 85. And Roberts was exactly 850 weeks into his term as Chief Justice. COVID-19, revelation, both summing to 850. And make no mistake about it, this whole agenda has to do with testing our will to reject, to say no. In the book of Revelation, this is represented through the mark of the beast. Mark of the beast sums to 144 in the alphabetic order. And in the book of Revelation, the number 144 appears 4 different times. The name John Roberts, our Chief Justice, sums to 144. And the word judgment is 144. His judgment fell 144 days after the FDA approved the vaccine. Pretty interesting, right? The name Judge is 47, so is John. Roberts is also 47. And in Jewish Gematria, Revelation is 47. In Hebrew Gematria, the word for revelation sums to 25. John Roberts became the Chief Justice in the year 2005. The 25th prime number, 97, John Glover Roberts equals 97, Roberts 97, SCOTUS 97, Supreme 97. And this date, September 29th, is also the date that leaves 93 days in the year. Check out how Supreme Court equals 903, just like courtroom, 903. And 93, that number of Saturn, which is often seen in connection with Libra, the scales, justice, fairness, things of that nature. Oh, just checking in on the chat again. I kind of fell behind earlier. Went on a long tangent there about the NFL. Yes, 1331 is our major eclipse number, correct. There was a really interesting riddle with Bill Belichick as well. Now, even teams that have already been eliminated from the playoffs had some pretty fun riddles. And I want to touch on the one that was with Bill Belichick, which is another example of how the number 1331 is kind of like the ultimate eclipse number. So earlier I showed this slide. So this is the Super Bowl for 2022, and the word eclipse equals 222. Total eclipse equals 56, and the 2024 eclipse occurs on a date with 56 numerology. So Super Bowl 56 in 2022, this is one of the riddles they could have gone with, all right? So let's glance at Coach Bill Belichick, who lost to the Bills, right? Bill versus the Bills. April 16th of 52. Look how old Bill Belichick would have been or will be on the date of the Super Bowl. 69 years, 303 days old. 69 and 33. So these are known as, was it the Jesuit order, right? 69. Order is 33. But the word eclipse sums to 69 and 33. Bill Belichick, notice how his name is 254. He entered the playoffs with 254 wins. There's 254 sidereal months in the Metonic cycle. Very significant astrological number. Now, if the Patriots went to the Super Bowl, it would have been their, let me think here. It would have been his 47th playoff game. So total eclipse is 47. Notice how this was Bill Belichick's 156th loss in his career. The word for eclipse in Hebrew sums to 156, and he just lost his 156th game. And remember, an eclipse always occurs 1, 5, or 6 lunar phases after the last one. There's more to the Belichick riddle. I'm not going to get into it because obviously it's not happening, but always look to the eclipse code for clues. You know me. I'll always do that. Oh, come on, guys. Obama's not the Antichrist. Pope Francis isn't the false prophet. Come on, guys. it's not that simple, all right? I mean, all of these people are part of this bigger thing playing out. And all of them are coded with similar numbers too, especially our presidents. So I just think it's a mistake to label someone in the public eye as, hey, this person is this biblical figure. You know, it's a little more complicated than that. Yeah, some of the questions I run across in the stream, they kind of lose their context because I'm not keeping up with them live, so I'm not sure what the AA is here. I don't think Moderna vaccine, I don't think the gematria of that had to do with the score of the game. It's all about the Saturn riddle. Yeah, I think the Super Bowl could be a riddle, or I'm sorry, John Madden's death could be a riddle for this Super Bowl, but if you watch my video on John Madden, I explain why I think it's connected to Super Bowl 57. Oh, yeah, another part of that eclipse code was Baker Mayfield. So you may recall that the Browns were doing really well, and then we had that Mayfield tornado at the candle factory, and Mayfield is right by the intersection of the two American eclipses. And then the next week, the Browns started a 3-game losing streak and got knocked out of the playoffs. So that was a big piece of it. And then the Colts were the other team in the path of this eclipse. And the Colts were going to make the playoffs, but then they lost to the worst team in the NFL, the Jaguars, and wound up getting knocked out. So both of these teams got knocked out in heartbreaking fashion. And then, you know, you could have had the Bills against the Cowboys, the two other teams. But, again, that's not the riddle they went with. Yeah, I tell you what, something else that tripped me out, just to talk a little bit about organic numerology, right? So, I haven't bet on sports in a long time, except for like a couple here and there. You know, for instance, I went to Las Vegas a couple years ago and went to the sports book, whatever. That was just fun, but this year was the first time I actually put money down on it, and it's always a mistake when I do that. I understand it. And I encourage people to either not bet or at least bet what you can lose, you know, because Vegas is the winner. I've shown you the charts for the Super Bowls. They always come out ahead. But anyway, right after I put the bets in, it was like Friday night, and this volcano happened just a couple hours later. And the volcano was in Tonga, and Tonga celebrates its anniversary on June 4th. The Kingdom of Tonga, independence declared on June 4th. Now, that's the San Francisco and 49ers establishment date, June 4th. So it would have been 26 years later that the Niners were founded. But that's also my birthday. And I was born exactly 15 years after Tonga declared its independence, and this eruption was on the 15th day of the year. So I got a kick out of that, how I finally put some money down, just a little bit of my energy into these playoffs, and boom, we get a volcano connected to my birthday. I don't know, make of that what you will. I got a kick out of it. I did not. Okay, there's a TV show where an airplane goes missing for 2,038 days. Well, we know what 2038 is. 666, 2038. The moon, 238,000 miles away on average. So that's a fun one. Manifest, huh? Yeah, just shout out to everybody giving love in the chat. It's always nice to see. Let's get into another news story. The big ones this week. Microsoft in the news. Yesterday, Microsoft came out and announced that they are making a purchase of Activision Blizzard for a whopping $69 billion. Now, I don't know where these numbers come from, if they're true. If you had told me Microsoft had $69 billion to spend on this, I don't know. But I guess that's how big video games are these days. You know, a couple years ago, 2020 hit, and all of a sudden, everyone became a gamer again. And the values really exploded. But yesterday's announcement was made by the numbers. Notice how it was January 18th, the date written 1/18. And in the standard alphabetic order, Microsoft sums to 118. Microsoft Corporation even summing to 118 with the S exception. They're buying Activision Blizzard. Blizzard also equals 118. And notice how video game equals 811. The inverse of 118. This is all to increase their video game portfolio. As far as the $69 billion, I always like to cast doubt on exactly how much money is being exchanged. This could just be numerology. Yesterday was the date leaving 347 days in the year. And 347 is the 69th prime number, $69 billion. A really big piece of this riddle is that Activision Blizzard operates World of Warcraft, which, even though it was released all the way back in 2004, is still to this day the most popular MMORPG in the world, boasting, I think, like 5 million players last year, more than twice its closest competitor. And who knows how many billions of dollars this game has taken in. Yesterday was the 18th day of the year. The 18th prime number is 61. And yesterday also had primary numerology of 61. In the alphabetic order, WoW equals 61. And WoW is the biggest MMORPG, which stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game, which also equals 601. Notice how World of Warcraft has Gematria of 75. Microsoft was founded in the year 75 and has now purchased World of Warcraft in the year 2022. World of Warcraft summing to 222. And think about how this was the 18th day of 22. Notice how World of Warcraft equals 22 and then 81. In Sumerian Gematria, Microsoft Activision Blizzard sums to 2022, the year of this deal. Activision Blizzard was originally founded on a date with 109 numerology, which can also be written as 110, right? So 109, 110. Microsoft bought Activision 109 days or 110 days after its anniversary. And notice how Microsoft Corporation equals 109. So I go back and forth on what I think about this. Like, did Microsoft just pick a date based on the numbers that exist between them and Activision? Or is Activision actually an extension of Microsoft since the beginning? I would be doubtful that the latter is the case. I think whoever was doing this at Microsoft probably just ran the numbers, picked a date long ahead of time, and went with it. It's also connected to Activision's acquisition of Vivendi Games, which was the original owner and publisher of World of Warcraft at the time with Blizzard. So strange connections there, but I got into reading a little bit about World of Warcraft, and I found something that I thought was pretty amazing. I just wanted to share this for anybody who didn't know about it. Less than a year after World of Warcraft came out, there was a new patch, and it was patch 1.7, I believe. And it had a feature called Corrupted Blood. And Corrupted Blood worked like a plague, right? So you would go into this raid instance, and I'm not a WoW player. I don't know much about it, just what I read. It's not like I don't play any video games, but not WoW. So Corrupted Blood, right? You'd kill a boss, and after you kill him, the boss's blood or whatever would cause this disease among all the players. And this virus was supposed to be contained in this instance, but I guess there was a glitch, right? And this glitch allowed the virus to be carried out of this instance into the entire game. And players would catch this plague and suddenly die. And right after coronavirus was a big deal in 2020, notice this article came out saying that World of Warcraft perfectly predicted our coronavirus panic. Now, when you read up on this, how did this virus actually spread, right? Because it wasn't supposed to spread to other servers. Well, as it turns out, this malady made its way into the outside world by way of hunter pets. So players' hunter pets would catch the disease, the pets would go into the server, and that's what would spread it to the real world in the game. Now, the same day that Microsoft purchased Activision Blizzard, publisher of World of Warcraft, we got this news story out of Hong Kong saying that they were going to kill 2,000 animals because they were spreading COVID. I mean, what in the world is going on? Is this a real news story? If it is a real news story, think about how evil this is, right? I mean, in this publication, they are telling people that, let's say you bought a pet 2 or 3 weeks ago from this store. Well, this store is now saying, hey, you got to take that pet back. We have to euthanize it because it might have COVID. I mean, holy crap. I thought we were the ones wearing tinfoil hats, right? This is completely nuts. Completely nuts. And evil, of course. Hong Kong saying that they would kill 2,000 small animals out of fears that they're spreading a human cold. Unbelievable. But again, this is probably just connected to this World of Warcraft story about pets spreading disease. And it's impossible for me to imagine that this is a glitch. Now, I'm not a programmer, but I have a fair amount of programming experience. And think about all of the game-breaking glitches that can occur when you take a massive patch like this and launch it into a server full of millions and millions and millions of players. So many things can go wrong with just like one line of code, right? But the only glitch that actually happens is that the virus gets spread to the entire servers when it's not supposed to. Come on, guys, that's not a glitch. That's called predictive programming, conditional brainwashing, you know? Getting people used to this idea of contagious viruses. Now, what really stood out to me is the release date of this patch that introduced the virus into the game. September 13th, which can be written as 13/9. Well, in the alphabetic order, COVID-19 equals 139. Now, if you write it out with the number 19, it sums to 47. The patch came out on the date with 47 numerology, leaving 109 days in the year. Again, virus, 19, right? The number coded into it. The virus was supposed to be held to this instance called Zul'Gurub. I love these Warcraft names. They're so bizarre. But notice how Zul'Gurub equals 38 and 43, just like pandemic. 38 and 43. And the patch to erase the disease was released on a date with 43 numerology. So, you know, whether it's been media, university, or now even video games. You know, this idea of a scary, deadly potential plague being spread from person to person. It's been out there forever. And what really struck me about this is that there was even I might have to look at the Wikipedia one for this. Corrupted blood incident here. Yeah, this is what's crazy about it, right? So in the game, player characters would walk around with the disease, and you could see their health falling. You could see that they had the disease, right? Same thing with pets, I think. However, there were NPCs in the game that could contract the disease, but it wouldn't kill them. However, they could still spread it to other players. And this simulated the idea of asymptomatic carriers. So back in 2005, they were implanting the idea of asymptomatic carriers in people's heads 15 years before the real pandemic. How insane is that? I don't know, guys. Make of this what you will. You know, maybe it's just a coincidence that the biggest multiplayer game of all time had this massive plague in it, but I think we should know better than that. Come on. And who knows if this game was launched with that in mind, or, you know, if they saw the success of this game and they're like, hey, we got an experiment that we're going to launch here. Because, you know, think about how we're all getting into the metaverse soon, right? Through Facebook and all these other places. Real quick, I wanted to touch on another story from the 13th day of the year. We did a little bit on how the Supreme Court made their big ruling on day 13 this year. Well, also on the 13th of the year, we had a story about the gang MS-13 on Fox News. And this numerology is so ridiculous, you know. It's like this MS-13 gang is something they keep trying to scare people with, and they always just drop it in the media by the numbers. I don't even know if it's real, really, but this article says that MS-13 now operates in exactly 40 of 50 states. Like 40 of 50, come on, really? 45 is the Gematria of 13, 13th day of the year. And check out how MS-13 even equals 45, right? The name of the man being interviewed in the news article from Fox, his name is Tom Homan. Notice how Tom Homan equals 99 and 117, which is 13. Tom Homan was born in the city of West Carthage, New York. And look at the gematria of West Carthage. $130 and 1300. West Carthage, New York, sums to 169, which is 13 squared. On the date of that news story, Thomas Homan was 46 days after his birthday. His name equals 46. He used to be the head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is 1337. And he was 3,137 weeks old. So that was a fun one. Another thing I completely forgot to mention when I was decoding the NFL is that the day that the Cowboys played, this is going to tie into the next story that I talk about, and then we'll probably wrap it up shortly after that, once I check out the chat for a little more. We had this hostage situation at a Texas synagogue on Saturday. And I noticed that the city that it occurred in had matching gematria with Dak Prescott. And again, this all happened in the Dallas area. Colleyville matches Dak Prescott, and Colleyville, Texas matches Rain Dakota Prescott, his full name. The word synagogue had matching gematria with Mike McCarthy, who was 68 days after his birthday for this hostage situation, 68. Notice how old Dak Prescott was on the date of this incident. 10,399 days old. That's the gematria of his coach, Michael John McCarthy, 1399. It was also a span of 195 days before Dak's next birthday. That's the gematria of Texas Synagogue, Mike McCarthy, 195. The Cowboys owner even, Gerald Wayne Jones, 195. And consider how this reminded us of a big mass shooting at a synagogue, right? We had the big synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh and Dallas are forever linked with the numbers 13. Remember how I pointed out that not only did Pittsburgh win the Super Bowl 13 years ago, but Pittsburgh defeated Dallas in Super Bowl 13. And the Steelers were playing their 1300th game that day. So a lot of syncs with the NFL for that synagogue situation. I didn't really look too deep into it. I did notice that the name of this hostage taker summed to 57. And the Super Bowl is on a date with 57 numerology. Super Bowl 56, 57. And the person was also 44 years old, and the Super Bowl's on the 44th day of the year. But here's what's really weird, right, is that this happened in Colleyville, Texas. Colleyville, right? Think about Collie, the name Collie. This same day, we had a news story about the death of the transit leader in Atlanta being hit by a train. And the man who took over for this CEO, his name is Collie Greenwood. Again, this news story was also on the 16th. Well, maybe the news story was the 15th. I can't remember. It was the same weekend, though. But I did want to decode this story because it's connected to the new mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens. Just sworn in on January 3rd. Look at that, 1-3. So how strange is it that the CEO of MARTA, which is the Rapid Transit Authority in Atlanta, got hit by a train, right, that he operates? There's a lot of irony there, but there's something about Georgians being hit by trains. So back at the end of 2019, I made this post about a Georgia college football recruit being hit by a train and killed. And remember, Georgia just won the college football national championship. 2 weeks after this happened, a police officer in Georgia was hit by a train. He was chasing like some suspect and ended up getting hit by a train, right? Who knows if that was a real story. And now we get the CEO of MARTA in Atlanta, Georgia, being hit by a train. And notice how hit by a train has the same gematria as Georgia. So does train. Train equals 62 in the alphabetic order. The new mayor of Atlanta was born on 6/20, June 20th. His name is Andre Dickens, which equals 62. A lot like the word sacrifice, 62. This man is the new mayor. And notice how mayor has a value of 72. The man who died in this story is named Jeffrey Parker, whose name sums to 72 in both reduction methods. He was the CEO of MARTA, which began operations in the year 72. He's being replaced by a man named Collie. Remember, same weekend as the Colleyville story. The name Collie Greenwood equals 72. Notice the date that MARTA began operating, February 17th or 217. The name Andre Dickens equals 217 and 107. Georgia just won the national championship, which equals 217 and 107. So this man named Jeffrey died on 114. The name Jeffrey equals 114. His death made headlines on the 15th day of the year. Atlanta equals 15 in reduction. This man's last name Parker also equals Atlanta, 69 in ordinal. But look at the date numerology of this news story. 58, 58 is the Gematria of CEO in both reverse Gematria and Jewish. They said he died at 56 years old. CEO of Marta is 56. I want to point out that some outlets also said he was 55 years old, so it could be another one of those cases where they just twist the numbers up. But the 56th prime number connects to Atlanta, 263, college football, 263. 263, the 56th prime. So Atlanta's on the 33rd parallel, and ATL equals 33. The name Jeffrey and Parker equals 33. He died a span of 333 days after the anniversary of his agency. Without the end date, that's 332 days. Marta is 332, so is Blood Sacrifice. The new mayor of Atlanta, his name equals 332. The college football national championship was just won by a man named Stetson Fleming Bennett IV. 332. What a name that is, by the way. Sounds English. So this man named Andre, he's also a deacon. Notice how Andre equals 130, deacon 103, sworn in on 1-3. This news story was published a span of 13 days after he took office, on a date with 13 numerology. CEO equals 13, and he died a span of 10 months and 30 days after the anniversary of Marta. His death also 10 weeks and 3 days after the Braves won the World Series in Atlanta. Notice how Jeffrey A. Parker equals 233, which matches the name of the train station where he died, 233. Metropolitan Atlanta Rapid Transit Authority, 233 in Jewish. That's the 13th Fibonacci number. See this? 233, the 13th fib. And then you take Marta's full name, and you also get 567. Of course, oh, look at this, 13, right? 513. But this 567 is the English value of 13. From the date that Marta began operating train service to the date that their CEO was hit by a train in the year 2022 was exactly 2,220 weeks old. It was also a span, or exactly 22 weeks and 2 days before the mayor's birthday. This story was also 2 years, 2 weeks, 2 days after a Georgia football player was killed by a train. And again, Georgia winning the 2022 college football championship. All right, so I think that's all I got for blog posts. Wow, that was a lot. Just going to try and go through the chat again. Yeah, if any of you guys played World of Warcraft back in 2005 when that plague was in the game, I'm kind of curious to hear your take on it because, you know, it was interesting reading about what happened. Like, there were some players who had healing powers, so those people would step in and help out. And then you had other people fleeing to the hills trying to save their characters. But then you had another small chunk of people who were trying to infect other players. And, you know, allegedly there were studies done on how behavior in the virtual pandemic could be connected to real-life human behavior. I don't see how you can make the connection. You know, there's too many people who think that, you know, you can take behavior in a video game and apply it to the real world. That's ridiculous. It's completely ridiculous. I don't think you can study behavior in a video game and suggest that it's going to be related to the real life, especially when it's life and death stuff, you know? I mean, if that was the case, then why aren't people was going to say, why aren't there mass shootings every day? I mean, you would expect more people. Like, it would be all the time, and you'd see it everywhere. Instead, we just get, the ones that the media focuses on, and a lot of those, especially in the early part of the last decade, were very suspicious. Omicron or Delta Island. I'll have to check into those. Take a note. I find that video gamers in general are some of the most brainwashed people, man. And it's really sad because, growing up, I was a video gamer, and I loved competitive games. I would travel to tournaments, always test my hand against the absolute best. So I always had this idea that gamers were smarter than the average person, right? Because you can't just win at a game without thinking. It's not just your ability. You got to use your brain, too. But I've been very disappointed by the reactions of people who immediately, loved the idea of staying inside. And some of these guys in the who represent big name teams for these esports, they're like super pro-vaccine, and they don't want to leave their house and stuff. It's like, man, get with the program already, right? Yes, there's always shills in the chat, and I'm a rookie when it comes to recognizing them right off the bat, which is why sometimes I spend too much time on those. Shout out to my mods who have been blocking some of the people in the chat, which is always necessary, unfortunately. As far as the next variant being called Pi, I mean, you kind of saw this coming, right? We were getting there. I haven't really looked into it yet. I hope you can forgive me for not decoding the Pi variant. It's getting a bit exhausting with the COVID stuff. I did do a COVID decode in this video regarding, the Vatican, but mainly because it was connected to the NFL, what I was talking about there. But, I mean, we're going on 2 years of this. I'm getting so annoyed with it. It's just like, let's get over it. Everyone I know, vaxxed or not, who are immune, who have gotten sick or not, whatever they think, everyone's sick of it. No one wants to talk about it anymore. And then what did they do yesterday in Milwaukee? Oh, they reintroduced the mask mandate. So you're supposed to wear a mask indoors everywhere again. And your business has to have a sign up. But intriguingly, when they passed the mandate, they also said that they're not going to be enforcing it. All they'll be doing is logging complaints and taking them into consideration for business renewals. So it's all a joke. It's all a freaking mess, dude. But yeah, we got this new mayor in Milwaukee. We had Mayor Barrett for like 15, 16 years. He's now the ambassador to Luxembourg, which is like the lamest ambassador job. I would actually think, let me take that back. Being the ambassador to Luxembourg has got to be one of the most badass jobs in the world, actually. It just seems so inconsequential. So we got a new mayor, and his name is Cavalier Johnson. So he's implementing all these new measures, and of course he's a Democrat. He's going to try and parent the people more and more. Same thing that's going on in a lot of blue states. And Wisconsin, we were technically a blue state in the last election, but if we truly are blue, it's really concentrated to the city and Madison. This is definitely a red state, like throughout when you get outside of those two areas. Why does my room look like a dreidel? Well, I guess it's because I'm sitting in the corner. I have a corner desk, and it's pointing to the corner, so that's hilarious. Thank you for that. Even though you spelled dreidel, like, terribly wrong. Really funny. Really funny one. To anyone who thinks I look better with hair, you did not see how bald I was. You just didn't. I mean, all you ever saw of me was this and then, like, my hair to here. But, dude, this was all bald. This is all thinning up here. You can see it. I do not look better with hair. Trust me. And I kind of take offense. I think I have a nicely round-shaped head. So, shame on you for saying that. Shame, shame. Just kidding. That's your opinion. You're entitled. We are also AI variations in this construct. Nice comment. I like it. We all know Florida's a mess. Yes. Gaming is a drug. Yes, that's a good way of putting it, man. I mean, it really is, because so many people get dopamine bursts from games. And just the fact that people can play games for so many hours and then do it again and again, like, that's a sign that there is something bad going on in your brain. And when it comes to video gaming and video gaming addiction, people actually have to, like, detox off of it. It's like getting your brain off of an SSRI or something. So that actually leads me to believe that it alters your state of consciousness, perhaps permanently, or as long as you're not aware of it. But yeah, video games are going to be as coded as just about anything when it comes to big multiplayer games and whatnot, because, you know, the occult has their hand in it. They know what's distracting the masses. For all the human energy that's put into sports and all of that takes away from men and women in this country from their real purpose, think about how much gaming does the same, you know? It's incredible. Now, and look, I'm not against video games. I think gaming is fine. Like, that's totally okay. I'm not one of those people who says, oh, you're a loser if you play games. Like, they're a great way to relax and hang out and chill with friends, but that's really all they should be. You know what I mean? You know, now with esports and everything, every kid thinks they're going to grow up to be an e-athlete. And in order to do that, you got to spend like a lot of time, because there's always people who are spending more time. So, you know, I'm pretty split on that, but you know, it's up to the parents, and unfortunately, parents suck these days. I always get a kick out of people coming in and saying, you know, here comes the alien invasion. If they fake an alien invasion, that would be my favorite thing to ever happen. They're not going to do that. That's crazy. You guys are... Now, that's not saying they might not fake something with blue beam technology or whatever. I would give the aliens thing a few more decades, for sure. Question to commenter in the chat here. Of course, the whole thing's been ridiculous, but in Cali, you're all wearing your masks. Do you really have to wear your masks? I mean, are you going to get a fine? Is the fine legit? Is there an actual law? I'm just wondering what the dynamic out there is with people. Like, will you actually get yelled at in public if you don't have a mask on? Because that hasn't happened here where I'm from in like over a year probably. I think people just kind of got used to, hey, some people wear them, some people don't. And, you know, yeah, there's a lot of people who think that, you know, it's okay whether you do or don't. I don't like them. I don't think anybody should be wearing them. You know, you're hiding your identity in public. Now you have all these crimes being committed by people who are masked up in public. And there's no evidence that masks helped. Of course, there is some evidence that N95 masks can help, but you can't breathe in an N95 mask. You simply can't. Those things are not made to be worn for a long, long time. And this is all assuming there's a deadly virus out there to begin with. So, I mean, are you actually complying with these mandates? Because when they had the mandate here, I just went out and just did my thing. And yeah, people looked at me funny, and I look back at them funny. Because they're wearing a mask. You look like an idiot. You look like a stupid fuck. I shouldn't have said that word, but whatever. I made it. If I figure I make it this far without swearing, what's the point, right? But it gets annoying. Especially those cloth masks, you know, the ones that we know don't do jack crap. I don't agree that, well, I don't know that Zach's a Freemason. You guys, there's always people in the chat who bring up Zach and whatnot. You know, all of that stuff that I've seen is conjecture, okay? You guys got to realize on the internet, there's a lot of people who are trying to deceive you. And it's not black and white. It's not good and evil. Some people who are out there who are doing overall good things may be deceiving you about others. Like, I don't see it. Unless you're going to talk about the G and his insulation. Imagine someone hitting your house with a car and then calling you a Freemason because the insulation in your house had the letter G on it. I mean, those are the type of arguments that were being made. So unless there's something better, I don't care about that stuff. The nations with the highest debt are most tyrannical with COVID. I don't know if that's totally true. I mean, I feel like all of these nations are in some sort of debt at this point. That's what the World Bank exists to do, is to place nations in debt. That was the plan since the beginning. I don't think it has to do with how much they're in debt. I think it has more to do with the symbolism of the nation. So look at Austria, for instance. Austria had some of the most horrible lockdown measures, and now they're talking about mandatory vaccination next month. Same thing in Germany. Remember, Hitler, born in Austria, ruled Germany. This is symbolic of what's happening. It's not because those countries are the highest in debt. I don't see that, no. Yeah, gambling is another drug. That's true. And that's why it's been legalized. You know, sports gambling is now legal, I think, in like half the states. And it'll probably be all the states, or at least close to all of them. Maybe not Utah or others, but, you know, within the next few years, I could see that. And, you know, is it a coincidence that over the past few years, there's so many people filling your head with sports numerology telling you it's rigged? I mean, I've been one of them, but convincing people sports are rigged by the numbers and then introducing sports betting, that's pretty interesting to me. I mean, if sports are rigged, which I still think they are, why would they be rigged not to lose money? Like, it's rigged so that they win money. It's not so that you can get rich. Yeah, I've been trimming my head short since August. I started shaving it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of little nooks and crannies and little spots on my head, right? So every time I shaved my head with a razor, I would get a lot of blood on my head. A lot of little small cuts. Getting hit in the head a lot as a kid. So I just trim it now, but this is the new me. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty bald anyway. It had nothing to do with me taking mushrooms, though. Nope. You only need to wear a mask if you're a white lady. Come on, that's racist. Come on. What, are you going to start calling people Karens now, too? Man, I got an aunt named Karen, okay? And imagine how much she hates all of this crap. So every store requires it, or you'll get bitched out in LA. That doesn't surprise me. I'm so glad I left LA, dude. I stayed there a very short amount of time. I was like, this city ain't what I thought it was, and I got the hell out. And you see it, man. LA is a spiritual cesspool. It really is. And when this whole thing hit, it just electrified everyone who was lost. Do You guys still see people wearing masks in their cars too? I still see that. I get a kick out of it, dude. I mean, it's sad, but it's funny. I'll show that comment. Yeah, they are sheep. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah, I talked about in my last stream how after the holidays, most of my family got sick, and most of them also took the jabs, and that includes the third jab. It seems pretty universal that once you get the third jab, you get sick. That's just what happens. And I still couldn't get through to them. They still said, "Well, it just makes it less severe. I got a less severe case." Okay. I'm sure you did. Let's see. Yeah, my mom lived in Germany for a long time. Not a long time, but her first husband was in the military and was stationed in Germany. So just a few years ago, her and my dad took a cruise through the Rhine River and went through Germany and got to visit a couple of the old towns that she was familiar with, and it was really cool. That's my most, like, the biggest chunk of my ancestry is German. I'm kind of split, though. I'm split 4 ways: German, Finnish, Irish, and Jewish. Oh, yeah, I'm sure I'll be on Inniverse again. I should do a quick video or something with links to a couple of recent shows I've done, because I've been on Inniverse. That was about a month or 2 ago. But then I also did a couple of different podcasts like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm gonna have to upload those or link to those. They were really good. They're both very different. And shame on me, I forgot to get the links ready for this video because I was going to link that early on, but I'll do another quick upload after this. But yeah, stop calling people Karen. Stop using those divisive terms, especially if it's someone's name. That's so messed up, dude. I mean, I know it sounds like I'm making a bigger deal out of it than it is, but like, you got to realize the level of programming that we're going on right now. And if you're out there calling someone a Karen, you are falling victim to the programming. You are being divisive, you know? Yeah, the runners with masks might be the most crazy. That's just insane. They're like, look at me, look at me. One of my favorite videos about maskers was when it was a video of one guy in a store where everyone else was unmasked and it was just the one guy with a mask. And he's looking around like, am I the only person with a brain? It's like, no. You're the only one with you're the only one who's still being a sheep. Do we have evidence of nanobots in the shot? I know I've seen evidence of graphene oxide, which makes sense, actually. I'm curious about the nanobots. Guys, I just want to show real quick. How do I show this? Notice how this happens on my live stream. I always get a sudden dip in viewers, so I was going from 79 to 42. This actually occurs multiple times over my stream, but like, you can't... I've mentioned this before, where suddenly a lot of people will drop off, and this happens over and over. So I can never get like to 100 at a time. Right, so you guys are saying, last year kids were fine, right? There were no kids sick with COVID or anything like that. This is a pandemic. This is an illness that started after the vaccines happened. Now, this is where I need to be careful on YouTube. My personal observations are that the only people I know of who got very ill or died of this disease before December of 2020 were very old, very ill, not good, healthy people. Since then, I've seen younger people die, early 40s, late 30s. It's the only... How do I phrase this? It's the only plandemic to get worse after the VAXX, right? Can anyone else name a time where that's happened? And the only time I got sick is when I hung out with people who took the jabs. So maybe they really did introduce something. I don't know. What do you guys think of John Cullen? Is that the guy who wasn't he working with Jason Goodman, right, on that Vegas thing? Is he legit? I don't know. Yeah, a couple years ago I was on with Jason Goodman on his podcast. It's got a lot of viewers. I met that guy at Anarchadelphia. Maybe I'll be back on there one day. I don't know. But I've never actually looked at John Cullen's stuff like on his own. I'd be curious. Unless it's a different John Cullen. I know it's a common name. When it comes to graphene oxide, I'm talking about how there has been some scientists who came forward within this was just 5-6 months ago or something, saying that they ran tests, saying that this stuff was in the blood. And I'm just pointing out again, there's another dip here in my viewers. Look at that. This isn't the same one. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, when I'm most familiar with Jason about Las Vegas. Like, that's really all I ever saw of him before Anarchadelphia. So when I met him there, I just wanted to talk to him about the Las Vegas shooting and what he thought about that. Because I did a lot of researching into Vegas, and I was like, I don't think it's a complete hoax. And I always get roasted for not thinking everything's fake by someone in the chat. But not everything's fake. There's mixes of fake and real. And no, it wasn't Stephen Paddock from the 32nd floor. But I definitely think some people got shot there. That was his conclusion. And I was like, hey, maybe this guy actually has his head on straight. Because too many people are just instant hoax. We've talked about this a lot recently. Okay, same one. That's good. Does Cullen teach Gematria now or what? I'm kind of curious because as far as I know, Jason and them never talked about numbers or anything, but the Las Vegas shooting was one of the biggest numeric rituals we've had in the existence of the nation, All right, let's see. We've been going about 100 minutes now solid, so I think we probably got everything out of the way. I got all my decodes done. Spent a lot of time talking with the chat again. Next time, maybe try and come with a story because I may not always have 90 minutes of material to decode. But I would like to spend a little more time going into my thought process when I decode. Talking about kind of how I go about making connections, what I'm thinking, things like that. I get a lot of questions about it. It's a tough thing to teach because not every news story is the same. There's a lot of moving parts. So I'd be curious, but maybe if any of you guys follow that Cullen channel, maybe drop some comments and tell Cullen he should have me on. And I can teach them how everything happened by the numbers, and it's undeniable. But maybe they're not interested. I don't know. Not everybody's interested in it. Even truthers. I don't get it, but who knows? All right, guys. Thanks once again to all the lovely souls in the chat who popped in. Whether you're watching live or archived, thanks to all of you. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.